The air was thick with tension, an electric charge that hung over the battlefield like an impending storm. It was the early hours of June 6, 1944. Shadows danced among the jagged edges of the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc, as American soldiers huddled in landing craft, the sea churning beneath them. The rhythmic thump of their hearts drowned out the roar of the ocean, each pulse echoing the dawning realization of what lay ahead. They were not just men. They were a storm waiting to unleash on a world that had suffered too long under the weight of tyranny. As the boats jostled in the surf, Private First Class Tommy Henderson gripped the cold metal of his rifle, fingers trembling against the freezing bite of the Atlantic water splashing over the craft. The salty tang mingled with fear and anticipation, creating an odyssey of emotions that clung to the back of his throat. He was just 19, a fresh-faced boy from Ohio, drawn from the comforts of home into the chaos of war, amidst stories of heroism and tragedy. Now, he was part of a force aimed to reclaim freedom, straining against the tide of oppression sweeping through Europe. "Keep your heads down," shouted Sergeant Lewis, his voice a rumble above the din of the encroaching battle. The hulking figure of the non-commissioned officer surged forward, urgency etched on his face, eyes sharp beneath a furrowed brow. "Get ready to disembark." The order rippled through the ranks, a current of dread and determination. In the frail light of dawn, the soldiers could see the craggy coastline ahead. The German defenders were waiting, fortified on the cliffs, a cruel bastion against the rising tide of Allied forces. Behind them, the ocean mirrored the sky in an ominous gray, a fitting backdrop for the dark hour that was about to unfold. As the landing craft lurched forward, Tommy's eyes were drawn to the sights and sounds around him. He could hear the muted shouts of his fellow soldiers, feel the collective heartbeat of their desperation. They had trained for this moment night and day, yet as the water surged and the first crack of artillery echoed in the distance, uncertainty gnawed at his resolve. "God, I hope I make it home," he whispered under his breath, a silent prayer to the universe. The faces of his family flickered in his mind. His mother, always cautious but proud, his father who spoke of their lineage with fierce honor, and his younger sister, eyes bright with hopes unsullied by the weight of war. These thoughts were sacred, and he clutched them close as the ramp dropped, exposing them to the raw chaos outside. The beach erupted in a cacophony of noise and movement. The metallic roar of machine guns filled the air as fire rained down upon them, the whiz and crack of bullets dancing dangerously close. Lives were being claimed within seconds, the ground painted crimson as Tommy stumbled ashore, his heart racing harder than the surf beneath his feet. The sand, churned and slippery beneath him, turned into a quagmire of death and trepidation. Soldiers scattered, some finding cover behind the rocky outcrops while others fell to the ground, too rigid with fear to rise. The world became unfocused. Fuzzy edges swirled around, a chaos of light and shadow punctuated by the guttural cries of men and the staccato of gunfire. Each sound intensified the heartbeat pounding in his chest, urging him to move, to run, to survive. Move, move. Sergeant Lewis barked again, his voice slicing through the chaos like a beacon in the storm. He was a guardian angel in a hellish landscape, propelling them forward into the maw of danger. Tommy followed the sergeant's orders instinctively. The will to protect those whom he fought alongside was stronger than his own fear. He could see the cliff looming ahead, punctuated with fortifications, soldiers still poised to fire upon those who dared ascend. Over there, Tommy pointed to what looked like a submerged trench, a potential sanctuary. He sprinted, muscles burning, adrenaline coursing through him as he dove into the shallow trench, where a few weary compatriots were already taking shelter. "Thank God you're here," a soldier, a private named Al, gasped, shaking with fear. They caught their breaths momentarily, the tension crackling between them as they exchanged glances, neighboring soldiers bearing witness to another thread being woven into history. "On my count, we hit the cliff," Sergeant Lewis barked, counting down until they were ready, hearts synchronized in uncertainty. 1, 2, 3. With that, they scrambled from their shelter, charging towards the base of the hill that towered above them with ominous power. Tommy felt the world narrow around him, the shrieks of wounded men, the clamor of gunfire, and the cries of his brothers in arms. Everything fell away, consumed by the pull of survival. They reached the base of the cliffs, scrambling up the rough terrain, fingers clawing at the gnarled rock face as they ascended. Each step was perilous, threatening to send them tumbling back down into the chaos. Bullets whizzed past, missing their mark but tearing apart the earth with destructive fervor. Tommy's heart pounded, sinking with the raw urgency of the moment. "Up, we have to reach the view," Sergeant Lewis urged them on. the fearlessness in his voice igniting a fire inside Tommy. He pushed himself harder, feet pounding against the hillside, each rise a step closer to turning the tide in this brutal conflict. And then, they were upon the edge, facing the enemy fortifications. The Germans were methodical, disciplined, their resolve fierce. Their positions were fortified, barricades of metal and stone shielding them as they fired relentlessly. Tommy glanced at Al, who nodded, determination tearing over his youthful features. "Cover me," Al shouted, racing towards the enemy positions. Tommy held his breath, every nerve alight as he trained his rifle on the dark silhouettes hunched over their guns. Every squeeze of the trigger became a prayer, a plea for survival, for his friends. Gunfire erupted all around him, bullets soared overhead like angry hornets. Tommy focused, breath steady through the frenzy, finding solace in the chaos. Al made the dash, darting to the side as shots whistled near him, a surreal juxtaposition, time stretching painfully between heartbeats. Tommy aimed, fired, the recoil grounding him in the moment. With each shot, he staved off despair, defiant against the nightmarish tableau unfolding around him. This was his chance to be a part of something bigger. But the battlefield does not abide the weak. It demands blood and sacrifice. Al stumbled, the realization hitting too late, as a shot rang true. Tommy watched in horrified slow motion as his friend collapsed, the life snuffed out like a candle in the wind. Tommy cried, scrambling towards him, the sound of his own voice barely registering as the world around him shrieked in pain. He made it to Al's side, cradling the lifeless form, the gravity of loss crashing upon him like a wave, dragging him down. No, no, his hands trembled as he checked for life, futilely willing Al to breathe, as if faith alone could stave off the merciless clock of death. Desperation burned in Tommy's chest, even as bullets grazed, exploding earth and rock in chaotic bursts. Sergeant Lewis was there, hauling him back from the abyss. "Stay with me, soldier," he shouted, the sergeant's voice a lifeline that pulled him away from the gaping maw of despair. "We have to keep moving." But that moment would tether itself to Tommy's soul, a gaping void in the fabric of who he was. In an instant, the camaraderie became a fleeting memory, a reminder of the cost of war, a young life extinguished in pursuit of freedom. It overwhelmed him, the weight of his family's expectations crashing down only to be replaced with a fierce longing to fight in their honor. With a final determined shake of his head, Tommy picked up his rifle, staggering back into the fight with eyes that reflected the deep-seated anguish coursing through him. They couldn't falter, not now. He was caught between past and present, a spirit willing to push through the dark. As the day wore on, the fighting intensified. Men fell and rose, cries of valor mingling with shouts of despair. They found their footing on the cliffs, pushing through a surge of hatred and fear into the throes of battle. As they drove forward, they became an unyielding force, a whirlwind of resolve navigating the debris of war. "Press on," Sergeant Lewis urged as they barreled toward the enemy fortifications, now a shimmering mirage of desperation. The sound of gunfire became a constant in their existence, a foreboding lullaby, accompanying each desperate charge. They crested the edge, and Tommy could see the enemy retreating, their positions beginning to falter beneath the weight of their resolve. Then, an explosion erupted near him. Shards of wood and stone flew as time stretched unduly, breath catching in his throat. He stumbled, falling to his knees, disoriented but still alive. The chaos swirled around him. He fought against the tide of darkness encroaching on his vision, purpose anchoring him in place. "Get up," the sergeant roared, pulling him back to reality. "Get up and fight." With the sergeant's words igniting a flame deep within him, Tommy rose, driven by the memory of Al but also the burning passion to reclaim the freedom that had eluded them for so long. They surged forward, charging with all they had left, and suddenly, the tide began to turn. A collective roar filled the air as they pushed against the enemy, desperation morphing into defiance, and then a moment of unity washed over them, a flash of recognition in each soldier's eyes, a fierce knowing that this victory was not for the living, but for those they had lost. As they breached the final barricade, they surged together, driven by loss, grief, and hope, a powerful symphony of emotions that fueled their charge. They fell upon the German positions, and the enemy faltered. Caught in the wave of American soldiers, they surrendered in such haste that it felt almost surreal. But among the triumph was a keen awareness of the cost, the sacrifices made, the price of victory laid bare across the bloodied sand. In the aftermath, silence enveloped them. The air was laden with the stench of gunpowder, of blood and sweat, mingling with salt from the ocean waves.
Tommy stood at the edge of the cliff, gazing towards the horizon, an expanse of blue that felt symbolic of both hope and despair. He could feel the weight of Al beside him, a whisper echoing in his heart, a reminder of life's fragility. As the initial celebrations erupted around him, Tommy found solace in the quieter moments, absorbing the reality of the fragile victory they had carved through blood and tears. They had overcome the odds, yet the ghosts of the fallen lingered, etching their names across the walls of his heart. Life resumed in the days that followed. Wounded were treated, officers were debriefed, and the fight for liberation was far from complete. Allies would rally, and battles would endure, marching forward toward victory. But for Tommy, the real victory lay not in taking ground, but in honoring the names and memories of comrades lost amidst the chaos. He would carry Al's spirit with him, and with every battle they faced, Tommy wrote a new chapter in the story of their shared sacrifice. A promise burned bright within him to ensure their memories shone through when the world emerged from its darkest days, to be a vessel of remembrance, harboring the love, hopes, and dreams bestowed upon them before the war began. As the war raged on, those moments at Pointe would become a cornerstone of his existence, a touchstone of courage amidst adversity, igniting the fire within to continue fighting not just for his life, but for the lives of those who would never again see their families. The innocent sacrifices etched into the fabric of history. The battle was won, but the war for freedom never ceased, a relentless tide that surged onward, fueled by the very essence of humanity. Around him, the echoes of laughter rose with the dawn, a melody mixed with sorrow, a reminder of the impermanence of life. And Tommy Henderson, standing defiantly against the sun, held tightly to the belief that they would emerge from this together, forever ensuring that their sacrifices were not in vain.